So here's something that you can do to create the best daily exercise for understanding jazz harmony. So here I have Stella By Starlight loaded into the app, and you can see the full harmonic analysis, and you can play it and watch the different harmonic paths in the song. Remember, the map shows the three regions in tonal harmony: the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant. And we have plenty of videos explaining the map, but in this video, we don't need to worry about it too much. We're just going to use the score. On iOS, you can hide the map if you want. Just tap on the map button here. First, I want to turn off the analysis. To do that, just switch the staff preset to lead sheet. On iOS, tap on the next staff here, and you can just see the chords. Now you have a regular lead sheet with no analysis. So let's open Bye Bye Blackbird and let's try to decipher the harmonic progression ourselves. I'll guide you step by step throughout the process, so by the end of the video, we should have the exact same analysis as shown in Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro. Remember, there's a catalog of 1,300 songs fully analyzed in Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro. So if you do a song a day, you can work like this for 4 years straight. The first thing I'm going to do is mark the most obvious cadences in the score. So let's try by finding all the dominant chords and see how they resolve, and if they're preceded by a related 2 chord. So this C7 resolves to F6. So the root C resolves to a root F. That's a perfect fifth down. So I'm gonna mark it with an arrow like this. And I don't care if the quality of the F chord is major, minor, dominant, augmented, whatever. The only thing I'm marking is that movement of a perfect fifth down from a dominant chord. Now C7 is preceded by G minor 7. G to C is also a perfect fifth down, and this is a minor 7 chord. So G minor 7 is acting as the related 2 of C7. In this case, I'll draw a bracket from G minor 7 to C7. Here's another C7, but this C7 doesn't resolve to an F chord this time, so no arrow needed. But it is preceded by a G minor 7 again, so another 2-5 that requires a bracket. Now this F7 resolves to E7, and that's a half step down. In this case, the F7 is acting as a sub-5, a tritone substitution. Remember, the tritone substitution is always a tritone away from the 5 chord. For example, G7 to C major 7 is a 5-1. The tritone substitution for G7 is D flat 7, because D flat is a tritone away from G. So when we replace G7 with D flat 7, we get D flat 7 to C major 7. That's a sub-5 to 1. And it's always the case that the root movement is a half step downward, D flat to C. This is exactly the movement from F to E here. So I'm going to mark these movements of a half step down from a dominant chord with a dashed arrow like this. And the same goes to the E7 resolving down a half step to E flat 7 here, and then to D7 here. Now D7 resolves a perfect fifth down to G minor 7, so I'll draw a solid arrow. Here's another 2-5-1. E flat to D7 is a half step down, so that's another dashed arrow. And then D7 to G minor 7 is a solid arrow followed by a bracket arrow. And at the end, we have another 2-5. And sure, we can add a solid arrow here because this goes back to the beginning of the song. So the cool thing about having marked the score is that now we can see how F major is the only chord being targeted across the entire song by its 2-5, G minor 7 to C7. This gives a clear indication that this song is in F major and that there are no apparent modulations. To add the Roman numerals, we just need to think of the chord from the perspective of F major. So all the F major 7s and F6s should be a 1 chord. Also, chords that are not marked with any arrows and brackets are most probably diatonic chords. So these G minor 7s on measures 9 through 12 are all 2 chords. This A flat diminished is for sure the flat 3 diminished 7, and that's a very common chord in jazz that's usually used to connect the 3 chord with the 2 chord. I want to start with the last cadence here. C7 is connected to F6 by an arrow, and F6 is the 1 chord. So C7 is the 5 of 1. And as you know, we said that this is just a 5 chord, a diatonic chord. And G minor 7 is the related 2. So G minor 7 is the 2 of 1. But because it's diatonic, we just say it's the 2 chord. But now look at D7 to G minor 7. D7 is connected to G minor 7, and G minor 7 is the 2 chord. Therefore, D7 is the 5 of 2. So what I want you to see here is that arrows are really saying that this is the 5 of something, and brackets are really saying that this is the 2 of something. So this D7 in the B section is also a 5 of 2, and that's the complete analysis. So why am I not talking about these chords here? Well, chords that are part of a chain of arrows are usually ambiguous as to what the actual functionality in the current key is. Let me show you what I mean. Let's compare our analysis with Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro's. All right, so we got the same analysis, but let's talk about the chords that we left out. For example, this E flat 7 preceding D7 here is connected to D7 by a dashed arrow. So E flat 7 is acting as a sub 5 of D7. But D7 is already a secondary function, the 5 of 2. So E flat 7 would be the sub 5 of the 5 of 2, a tertiary function. But can we really hear chords as tertiary functions? E flat 7 in the key of F major is the flat 7/7, which usually resolves to the 1 chord via a backdoor progression. And in Bye Bye Blackbird, one could argue that E flat 7 is targeting F6 in the long run. So we could analyze E flat 7 as the flat 7/7, and that's exactly what Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro shows in the analysis. But the analysis of these tertiary or higher level functions is open for interpretation. The same occurs in the B section. This is an extended dominant sequence. All the chords in these 4 measures are connected by arrows. So E flat 7 would be tertiary, and E7 would be quaternary, and F7 would be quinary. So is S7 the 5 of 4, as it says in Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro, or is it the sub 5 of the sub 5 of the sub 5 of the 5 of 2? See what I mean? It gets pretty obscure. Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro still tries to assign a coherent Roman numeral to these functions, but I don't want you to worry about that too much today. In other words, when you see a chain of extended dominants, the arrows offer enough information as to what is really going on in the progression. The Roman numerals, in my opinion, aren't really that important. All right, so here's a cool twist on this exercise that you can also do in Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro. I'm going to hide all the chords in the progression by disabling the chords in the staff here. On iOS, open the staff menu, load the full analysis preset, and then on the preset editor, turn off the chord symbols. And I'm going to change the key of the song to C major by clicking on the keyboard right here. On iOS, tap on the key of the song here and choose the new key with the keyboard. So, can you write down the chords for Bye Bye Blackbird in the key of C? It should be pretty easy now that we've just analyzed the entire song. 1 major 7 is C major 7. Here's a 2-5-1, so it should be D minor 7 to G7 to C major 7. The 1-6 is the 1 in first inversion, so C over E. The flat 3 diminished 7 in this key is E flat diminished 7. Then another 2-5, D minor 7 to G7. Then a 2 chord with a line cliche, D minor major 7, D minor 7 to D minor. Then D minor 7 to G7 to C. Now comes the extended dominant sequence with all those sub 5s that we just talked about. You can think of the chords by looking at the Roman numerals, but as I said before, these are ambiguous chords, and it's a much better approach to work backwards by following the extended dominance chain. So instead of figuring out the chords in forward order, I'm going to work backwards. So the final target of the sequence is the 2 chord. That's a D minor 7, which is preceded by its 5 chord, so A7. Preceded by its sub 5, that's a dominant chord a half step above A7, which would be B flat 7. Another sub 5, so that would be B7, and yet another sub 5, which is a C7, a half step above B7. And that should be right. C7 is the 5 of 4 in the key of C major. And the rest of the chords are pretty easy. So did I get it right? Well, let's turn the chords back on and see what they are. Excellent, we got them all right. Well, there you have it. Like we said, this is a great way to use Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro to study harmony. Of course, there are lots of other things that you can do with Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro, but I'll show you those in future videos. I hope that was helpful. Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro is available for macOS and iOS. Visit mDecks.com to learn more, or use the QR code found on the screen right now to view the app in the App Store. All of our members will receive a PDF. If you're not a member yet, go ahead and click on the Join button right here on YouTube. By the way, if you work with Windows or Android, or if you just rather work like this in book format, I recommend checking out the Jazz Standards Progressions book and the Ultimate Jazz Harmony Workbook, which show you the standards fully analyzed and with just the analysis. So you can work the same way that we did today with these books.